Her televised allegations, particularly the Oprah interview, have inflicted undue harm upon the royal family. An apology no longer suffices. We are commencing legal action against Mrs. Meghan Markle.
We are starting a very big court case against a lady named Meghan Markle. She used to be a working part of the royal family. She went on a famous television show to talk with a lady named Oprah. During that talk, she said many things that were not nice. These words made the royal family feel very sad and very hurt. They feel like her words did a lot of damage to their name. For a long time, people thought she might just say she was sorry. But now, the king and his helpers say that saying sorry is just not enough anymore. They want to use the law to fix things. The whole situation is now going to the people who handle the rules and the laws of the land. It is a very serious time for everyone involved in this big family drama. At exactly 12 o'clock at night, something very big happened. Most people in the country of Britain were fast asleep in their warm beds. The big hallways of the palace were very quiet and very dark. There were no lights on and no people walking around. Inside a private room, King Charles took a pen in his hand. He was sitting at a large wooden desk. He wrote his name at the bottom of a very important paper. This paper was a special order. It was a rule that would change Meghan's life and her place in the family history forever. He did this while the world was quiet. It was a very big moment that happened in secret. He knew that once he signed his name, things could never go back to the way they were before. There was no big party to show what the king had done. There were no loud trumpets blowing at the palace gates to tell the people. There was no warning given to anyone outside. There was not even one last talk to try and make a deal. The king just moved his pen across the paper in a very sure way. With that one movement, the king commanded that every royal title belonging to Meghan be taken away. This means she can no longer use those special royal names. The king wanted to end a long story that the palace had been trying to fix for many, many years. He felt it was time to close that chapter of the book for good. Before we talk more about what this means, please click the button to follow us so you never miss a story. After the king finished writing his name, he stayed sitting in his chair. The ink on the paper was still wet. A man who knows all about the rules of the country was standing right next to him. This man was a senior helper. He had the important paper ready to be sent away. For a moment, neither of the two men said a single word. The room was so quiet you could probably hear a clock ticking. The king looked at the paper he had just signed. It was a command that had the power of the king behind it. It told every office in the palace to stop using Meghan's royal titles. From that moment on, those titles were not to be used in any official letters or books. It was a very firm and final decision. The instructions in the paper were very clear and very easy to understand. The changes were to happen right away, right at that very second. There was no way for anyone to ask to change the king's mind. There was no room to argue or try to fix it later. The king read the last part of the letter one time and then he read it a second time. He looked at the words very closely. It was almost like he hoped that reading it again would make it feel less heavy, but the words stayed the same. His hand stayed on the desk right next to the document. Then he finally put the pen down. All the worry seemed to leave his face. Instead, he looked very serious and very cold. He had been thinking about this for a long time. The helper stood there and watched the king. He knew that this was a very big choice. It was important because it finally made a line between being a private family member and having royal power. The king closed his eyes for a short moment. He knew that the paper he signed took away Meghan's special status, but he also knew that this would hurt someone he loved very much. He knew that his son, Prince Harry, would be very upset. Harry would feel like the king was attacking his wife. The younger son would feel like his father was pushing them away. The king wanted things to be final, but he knew Harry would only feel sad. This made the king feel a little bit empty inside, even though he did what he thought was right. The timing of the midnight signing was planned very carefully. They chose the middle of the night so that the palace offices could start changing their records before anyone could try to stop them. They wanted to fix the computer files and the books while it was dark. This way, the workers could get everything ready before the news came out. The communications teams wanted to have one clear story to tell the world. They did not want people to start making up their own stories or rumors. They wanted to be the first ones to say what happened. There was another secret paper sitting right under the first one. This second paper told the palace to look at every special gift or invite that the Sussex family still had. This second paper meant that many things could be taken away. They would look at invitations to big parties, official lists of names, and even if the couple could show up at future royal events. Each thing would be checked one by one to see if they should still have it. Suddenly, the silence in the room was broken. A person standing outside the door got a secret message on his phone. This message confirmed that the king had signed the papers. The helper read the message 2 times to be very sure. He gripped his phone tightly and made a very important phone call. He called Prince William. William is the king's oldest son and the future king. He picked up the phone very quickly before it even rang a second time. William listened to the news. Even though he is a very strong person, the news was hard to hear. It was a very big deal that would change his family forever. But before the palace could tell everyone what Charles had done, the people who made the choice had to think about the cost. They had to think about how it would make them feel as a family. On paper, the order looked very official and dry. But behind those words, there were three people who were very hurt. They were tied together by love, but also by being angry and feeling pain that had not been fixed. Charles saw a monarchy that he thought was getting weaker. He felt he had to be strong to protect the crown for the future. Harry saw a wife that he had promised to protect and love forever. He felt he had to stand by her no matter what. Meghan saw the very last parts of her royal life going away. She felt like she was losing the symbols of who she used to be. The Midnight Order was not just about paperwork or rules. It was like a deep cut to the family, but it was written in the language of the law. Harry stood very still as he held his phone to his ear. He was listening to his brother, William. William read the words of the order exactly as the king had signed them. William kept his voice very calm and steady. He understood that this royal command was very powerful and could not be stopped. A royal command like this comes from the king himself. It removed Meghan's official names from being used by the palace. There would be no slow change over time. It was not going to be a small symbolic thing. There was no room for anyone to have their own ideas about what it meant. Meghan watched her husband's face as he listened on the phone. She saw his face get very tight and worried. When he finally put the phone down, she did not say anything at all. She did not ask him what happened or scream for an answer. She just waited. When Harry finally told her that the decision was finished, she looked away. She was very still. Sometimes being very still is more scary than being angry. Meghan felt the loss deep inside. Even though the titles did not give her a job to do anymore, they still meant something. They were part of her history and her life. They were a link to the time she first joined the royal family. Losing them meant the palace was doing more than just changing words on a website. They were changing where she belonged. They were saying she was not part of the inner circle anymore. Charles felt the same truth from his side. He had said no to many other ideas. Some people wanted to just limit when she could use the titles. Others wanted to just put the titles to sleep for a while. But the king thought those ideas would not work. The king believed that having things be unclear was what caused all the fighting. He wanted everything to be very simple and very final. But even though he was protecting the crown, he still felt very bad. He felt guilty. He knew his son Harry would feel like he was being punished. He knew Harry would not see it as a way to keep things separate. William stayed on the phone after he gave the news. William thought it was good to have a clear line. He believed that the future of the crown could not depend on special rules for just one person. But he was also worried. He was afraid that Harry would think this was a way to make them feel small and embarrassed in front of everyone. William is going to be king one day, so he has to think about these things. He chose his words very carefully. He warned Harry that the news would be told to the whole world in just a few hours. Harry only had one big question for his brother. He asked if their father, Charles, had really signed the paper himself. He wanted to know if it was truly the king's own choice. Camilla, the king's wife, asked a similar question. She found the king sitting alone and asked him something very important. She asked if he was ready to lose his son Harry forever. She knew that this choice might break their relationship so much that it could never be fixed or mended. Charles did not answer her right away. He sat in silence. Camilla waited for him to speak. Finally, the king admitted that this choice might cost him the relationship with his son, but he felt he had no other choice. People had been saying bad things for a long time, but that was not why he signed the paper. Something Meghan had done at a private family event changed everything. Deep inside the palace files, there is a record of a specific moment. This moment turned years of being upset into a final command. For many months, the palace had been patient. They had listened to the interviews on TV and read the stories that were not always true. They had been very quiet. But then something happened that they could not ignore. The real reason for the Midnight Order happened at a private church service at St. George's Chapel. This was a time when the family was supposed to be together and be kind. Instead, it showed everyone how much they were divided. One talk that happened after that church service convinced Charles that things could not go on. He felt that Meghan's link to the royal family was now impossible to keep. He could no longer defend it to the public or to himself. There had been a lot of pressure building up for a long time before that day in the chapel. Meghan and the palace had fought about many different things. They fought about how she used her title and how she made her own brand. They fought about who would pay for her bodyguards and if she could still act like a royal when she was in other countries. A royal title is more than just a fancy name you call someone. It means you are connected to the king and the queen. It changes how people and governments look at you and listen to what you say. Charles knew that this was a very important thing that people needed to understand. He had waited to take action because he did not want to look mean. He did not want people to think he was just being mad at Harry's family. But the church service changed his mind. After they left the chapel, Meghan talked to a high-up worker at the palace. She was upset because she was not allowed to walk in the formal line with the rest of the family. A formal line is when the royals walk in a special order during a ceremony. Where you stand in that line shows how important you are and what your job is. Meghan told the worker that her title meant she should always have a place in those ceremonies. She said it did not matter if she had an active job or not. She spoke in a very calm voice, but her words were very strong. Princess Anne, the king's sister, heard what Meghan was saying. Anne walked over to them. Princess Anne is known for being very direct. She told Meghan in a very calm way that a title does not let you break the king's rules. She did not yell and she did not have to, she just spoke the truth. Meghan said back that you cannot change history just because the palace feels awkward having her there. Anne looked right at her and gave her a warning. She said that if Meghan used her title to try and get what she wanted, the king would have to make a final choice about her titles. After that, Meghan wrote a letter to the palace. In the letter, she asked to be included in all future family events. She said her place in history should not be hidden. Charles read that letter all by himself the next morning. He looked at one sentence where she said the palace had no power to take away her royal place. He drew a line under those words with his pen. He did not say anything, but he put the paper away. Then he told his team to do a full legal check. A legal check is when smart people look at all the rules and powers of the king. They found one way that the king could act. They said a special royal order could take away the titles and tell everyone to stop using them. This news meant there was no more guessing. Charles knew the next part would be the hardest for him as a father. He asked Harry to come to Windsor to talk one last time. He wanted to see his son before he signed the final paper. That meeting was very difficult. It did not change the king's mind. Instead, it made them say things out loud that they had been keeping inside for years. There were no helpers in the room. There were no people taking notes. It was just Charles and Harry, a father and a son. But on the table between them was a folder. That folder had the power of the whole crown inside it. Harry thought they were going to talk and make a deal. He thought there was still time to change things. But the king had already looked at all the legal rules. The king pushed the folder across the table toward his son. Neither of them touched it. The silence in the room felt very heavy and a bit scary. They were behind a locked door, away from everyone else. Charles told Harry that Meghan's titles could not be kept if she did not follow the rules of being a royal. Being a royal means you have to follow limits on how you act in public. You cannot use your name to sell things or make deals. You cannot act like the king agrees with everything you do. The king spoke slowly because this was very important for the future of the monarchy. He said if people used the royal name without the rules, the crown would lose its power. Harry got very upset. He moved his chair back and it made a loud noise on the floor. He told his father that this felt like a punishment for everyone to see. He said it was just a family fight that was being made into a public embarrassment. He said Meghan had already given up so much, like her security and her trust in the palace. He felt the palace was trying to take one last thing from her. Harry was very angry, but the king did not get angry back. Charles stayed very quiet. He said the monarchy cannot let people use the royal name only when they want to be famous or get into special places. He said it was not about revenge. Even though he said it wasn't about revenge, you could hear the sadness in his voice. Harry leaned in and asked if this was really about Meghan or if it was because he had left his job as a royal. The king looked at him for a long time. He admitted that Harry leaving changed things, but not for the reason Harry thought. The king opened the folder and gave Harry one last choice. He said Meghan could choose to give up the titles herself. This would make it look like they both agreed instead of the king forcing her. Giving them up by choice would look a lot better to the public. It would be a voluntary move, which is a big word for doing it yourself. Harry said no right away. He said his wife would never do a forced surrender. He did not want it to look like she was giving up because she was told to. Charles took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes. He looked very tired. He told Harry that if they said no to that, he had no other choices left. It sounded like the king had lost a battle, not won one. Harry stood up and walked to the door. He stopped and asked his father if he was really going to choose the crown over his own child. Charles did not say anything. He stayed silent, but Charles was not alone in this choice. There were many other people who helped him decide. Behind the king's silence was a big team of people. The midnight order was signed by Charles, but many people helped get it ready. William had asked for things to be clear. Anne had asked for the rules to be the same for everyone. The king's helpers had looked at every possible result before they gave the paper to the king, but it was still a hard family moment. The king was tired. He listened to his family members tell him that waiting any longer would be dangerous. William thought the danger was not just about Meghan. He thought that if they didn't fix this now, the kings who come after him would have to deal with the same mess. William wanted there to be a clear rule. He said people who are non-working royals are just family members. They don't have the power of the crown, but active royals have a job to serve the country. He was afraid that if the two were mixed up, it would make the crown look weak. Princess Anne gave the king a special report. She had marked the parts about using titles and going to big events. She told him that rules don't mean anything if you change them just because someone is family. Her message was very tough. She said that trying to protect Harry from the consequences of his choices only made the fight last longer. Charles looked down at the floor. The king did not argue with his sister. He looked very sad because he knew she was right. William did not want the order to be a way to erase their family history. He asked for special rules to make sure the order only changed the official titles. He wanted to make sure it did not change Meghan's marriage or her place as a mother. He also wanted her to stay in the private family records. William wanted to separate the job from the person. This was important because the king could end the official job without acting like Meghan had never been part of the family. There was a secret part of the rule that promised this. This secret part helped Charles feel a little bit better. It meant he could close the royal door but still be a grandfather and a father in private. He could end the official connection without saying they weren't family. Camilla watched him sign an earlier paper. She saw his hand shake a little bit when he saw Harry's name. She didn't say much, but she reminded him that the paper was about the rules while the name was about his son. Charles finished signing his name, but he still felt unsure. The palace teams were all ready to go. They had fixed the website and the lists. They had even sent out new instructions to the government offices. All of these things were kept secret until the exact time they were supposed to be shown. Then a helper looked at the clock and told the king it was almost midnight. When the clock struck 12, things started to move very fast. By the time the sun came up, the royal website was already different. The lists for ceremonies were changed. The government offices had their new orders. The secret choice Charles made was now on every screen in the world. Meghan found out about it from her helper. She did not get a phone call from the king. Her assistant showed her a page on the computer and the royal name was gone. For a few seconds, Meghan did not say a word. She was very quiet. Then she asked to see every single change. The palace workers had stayed up all night to do this work. They replaced her royal name with just her regular name. They changed the rules for how to write letters to her and how to invite her to things. These are called protocols. They changed future records too. This means her old title would not be next to her name anymore. The speed of the change was very important. The palace wanted to show they were serious. They did not want anyone to think they were hesitating or being unsure about the choice. Meghan sat at her table and looked at the laptop. She read every line very slowly. She stopped at the place where her title used to be. Then she closed the computer. She asked Harry if he knew exactly when this would happen. Her voice was very calm, but you could tell she was hurting. Harry said he knew it was coming soon, but he didn't think it would happen so fast. He thought he would get one more chance to talk to his father. He was surprised the changes happened before they were even told. Meghan asked who knew first. When Harry said that William was told before them, she felt like she had been betrayed by her family. Meghan went across the room and got a folder. It was full of old letters and notes from her time as a royal. There were invites to big parties and notes from people in the palace. She looked through the pages. She was looking for the moment when everything went wrong. She was looking for when being part of the family turned into being pushed away. She started to feel very angry. She thought about telling the whole world how mean the palace was being. She wanted to say they were being cruel on purpose. But Harry told her to wait. He said they did not know all the legal rules yet. He was afraid if she said something too fast, it would make things even worse. Then the assistant found something they did not expect to see. One special thing had not been taken away. There was a private invitation from King Charles. He wanted to talk to Meghan one-on-one. He said there would be no helpers and no records kept. He just wanted to talk. Meghan looked at this invitation for a long time. It was the first surprise in the whole mess. It made her have to make a choice. Did she want to be angry and get revenge, or did she want to find a way to end the fight? For the first time, there were no lawyers or people telling them what to do. It was just a private chance to speak. Charles and Meghan talked on a special secure phone call. A secure call means no one else can listen in or record it. Charles did not call her a duchess. She did not call him your majesty. They just used their names. They were just two people whose choices had split a family apart. This talk changed what the midnight order meant. Charles told her that the order was not meant to take away her family. He said she was still a wife and a mother. He said the law can change titles, but it cannot change the family they built. He said it was important to know the difference. Meghan did not get soft or change her mind, though. She told the king that taking the titles away in front of everyone still felt bad. She said it told the whole world that she was not good enough. She said the public would only hear that she was being rejected. Charles listened to her and did not stop her from talking. He finally said that the palace had failed to fix the fight before it got this bad. He said both sides were now very angry and did not trust each other. Then they were both quiet for a little while. After that, Meghan did something the king did not expect. She said she would not fight the order in court. She would not spend her whole life fighting the palace. She said her choice was not about giving up. She said it was about stopping the cycle of fighting. Charles felt a little bit of relief, but he also felt sad. Meghan said she would accept that the titles were gone, but she also said she would never say sorry for wanting to be independent. She wanted to live her own life away from royal rules. She had one more thing she wanted. She asked the king to promise that her children, Archie and Lily, would never be blamed for what their parents did. The king said yes right away. He promised their bond to the family would stay safe. The legal stuff would not be used against the kids. Meghan ended the call and found Harry. She told him that it was over. She did not sound happy, but she sounded like she was finished with the fight. When she decided not to fight, the palace told the whole world. Everyone in Britain found out on a very busy morning. The news came out right as the sun was rising. In just a few minutes, everyone was talking about it. TV shows stopped what they were doing to talk about the king's choice. People who study the palace gathered outside in the gray weather. Some people said it was about time the king did this. Other people said it was too mean and too harsh. There was one picture that showed how big this moment was. Someone held a newspaper up against the palace fence. The headline had 5 big words: "The crown closes the door." The palace put out a short message saying the titles were officially gone. This was because the king had ordered it. They said private family things would stay the same, but the official royal job was over. The words they used were very careful. They did not want to sound mean, but the results were very big. A small group of people stood outside Buckingham Palace. They looked at their phones and saw the news spreading all around the world very quickly. People stopped arguing for a moment to just look at the news. Everyone knew that the door was closed and it would not open again. A person on the news said this was the final split between Meghan and the working royal family. An old palace worker said that the family link was still there, but the royal role was totally gone. His words were very simple and they got to the heart of the matter. Harry watched the news on TV. He was very quiet. Meghan used the remote to turn the sound down. She did not want to hear people talking about whether she had lost or won. She told Harry they had already made their choice. William had a meeting to go to, but he stopped for a moment when his helper told him the news. He saw that the public was very split on the choice. Some people were happy and some were mad. William had wanted things to be clear, but he saw that clarity can still make people angry. He asked if there were any protests. He told his helpers not to act like they were happy about winning. He wanted everyone to stay professional. Charles did not want to watch the news at all. He went to a small church service by himself. He wanted some quiet time to think about his big decision. When he came back, there was a message from Harry. The message said that Meghan would not fight the order. Now that the fight was over, people started to ask what it all meant for the future. The Midnight Order did not really have a winner. Charles kept the rules of the monarchy safe, but he lost a lot of his relationship with his son. Meghan lost her titles, but she also got away from the fight that had been going on for years. Harry could not change what happened, but he didn't have to worry about what the palace would do next. The battle was finally over. Charles went back to his office. The change was now part of history and would be in all the books forever. The rules for how the government and other countries talk to the royals are called diplomatic protocol. These were all changed to show that Meghan was no longer a royal. She was still Harry's wife and she was still the mother of the king's grandchildren, but her official title was gone. The king picked up the pen he used and put it in a drawer. He did not want to keep it out like a trophy. He was not proud of what he had to do. He felt like it was just something that had to happen. He read Harry's message one last time. He knew that even though the rules were clear now, his son was even farther away from him. Meghan closed her folder of old letters. She did not throw anything away. She kept all the memories inside the folder and put it in a safe place. She was not trying to act like the past didn't happen. She just wasn't going to use the past to fight for a place in the palace anymore. Harry understood that his life would be different now. His family would live completely outside of the royal world he grew up in. He was sad about that, but he knew he couldn't just talk his way back in anymore. His choice was final, just like the king's paper. William knew that this new rule would last for a very long time. William thought the decision protected the crown for the future, but he also saw that his family was hurting. Princess Anne went to see Charles before the sun came up. She told him that he did what he had to do. She was very honest with him. She told him that just because it was necessary doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. The king agreed with her. The choice was done and it could not be changed. The monarchy chose to have clear rules instead of being confused. Meghan chose to be free instead of being a royal. Harry chose his wife and kids over his old life. It was a very big day for everyone. The order did not stop them from being a family, but it stopped them from being a royal team. Charles finally did what he had been waiting to do. Meghan finally stopped trying to fit into a system she did not like. The king left his office as the sun started to rise. The signed paper stayed on his desk. It was finished and it was complete. By the time the morning light hit the palace, a final line had been drawn. Meghan had accepted her new life outside the palace walls. The long fight that had been bothering the royal family for so many years was finally brought to a quiet end. Thanks for watching our story today.